A court has sentenced a former British Army officer to 34 years in prison for his part in a failed plot to overthrow the African nation of Equatorial Guinea.
Simon Mann admitted being involved in a 2004 conspiracy to topple the government. Harry Smith reports.
Simon Mann has already spent 4 years in an African jail after being arrested in Zimbabwe for illegal possession of guns and ammunition. After being extradited to Equatorial Guinea to stand trial, he confessed everything. He told the court he was now a reformed character and apologised for his part in the failed plot to overthrow the country's government.
Well, I would like to say that I am very, very sorry for what I tried to do in 2003 and 2004. I am very sorry for what I've done. And I'm also very happy that we failed, that it didn't work.
Mann, a former soldier in Britain's elite Special Air Service, was arrested with 60 other men as they tried to buy guns for the coup attempt in Zimbabwe. According to an author who's written extensively about mercenaries in Africa, it was an uncharacteristic mistake by such an experienced soldier.
He probably got involved because he thought the money was very tempting and the spirit of getting involved in this sort of caper would draw him in. But he made some serious mistakes. He didn't take the sort of care that he should have done if he wanted to get away with it. In addition, he also thought, or he says that he believed, that various governments were backing him.
The plan was to topple the government of Teodoro Obiang Nguema and replace him as head of the oil-rich country with an exiled opposition leader. Mann claimed the coup was backed by the governments of Spain and South Africa, a claim both countries deny. He also accused Mark Thatcher, son of former British Prime Minister Margaret Thatcher, of providing money for the operation. Thatcher was arrested in South Africa but said he thought the money was intended to provide a helicopter for use as an air ambulance. The government of Equatorial Guinea are now seeking the extradition of Thatcher and other alleged backers to face trial. Harry Smith, Al Jazeera.
Well, Fiona Govan is a journalist based in Equatorial Guinea. She was present at the courtroom and joins us now on the line from Malabo. Fiona, did you expect this?
I think it was expected, yes. The Attorney General had said he would ask for the maximum sentence of 34 years. And it seemed pretty straightforward all along that he was going to get that.
Do you think he had a fair trial?
I've never been to a trial in Equatorial Guinea before. It was certainly not like any trial I've been to before. The only evidence was presented by Simon Mann himself. He was not cross-examined, and no actual documents or evidence was presented in court apart from his testimony.
But do you think that it was made easier for the prosecutors, given the fact that he so unequivocally had admitted to being involved and confessed?
I think it made it very easy for the prosecutors, yes. I think the idea was that he was fully cooperative in the hope that he would be shown some leniency. In fact, he said that at the very beginning, at the start of proceedings, that he hoped for clemency because he had been so cooperative and had named names and given them all the information that they'd asked for.
Yeah, talking about naming names, over the past 4 years or so, he's always insisted that he was the manager and not necessarily the architect of this failed coup plot. What does this mean now? Does it mean closure of this trial and the story, or are others still implicated?
I don't think it means closure at all, no. Simon Mann has spent a lot of time trying to persuade the authorities here that he was just a junior member in an international plot to overthrow the president here, and he named lots of other names, including that of Eli Khalil and Sir Mark Thatcher, and the Attorney General has vowed to pursue the other people involved. In fact, the judge today said that international arrest warrants had been issued for those people, and they would continue to fight for justice.
Fascinating. We'll have to follow it up as it unfolds. Fiona Govan, thank you very much for your thoughts.
The Afghan government says it believes a deadly suicide bombing of the Indian embassy in the capital, Kabul, was carried out with help from what it's calling regional intelligence circles. Afghanistan's Interior Ministry stopped short of naming Pakistan, But that's where the finger of suspicion is pointing.
At least 44 people have been killed in the attacks, including 2 senior diplomats, and another 140 people were injured. From Kabul, James Bays reports.
The bomb went off at the busiest time of the day, rush hour right in the centre of Kabul. A suicide car bomber driving a vehicle packed with explosives, causing devastation outside the Indian embassy. More than 100 people in total are believed to have been killed or injured. Some of the victims were Afghans, queuing up outside the embassy, waiting to apply for an Indian visa.
I saw lots of people dead, about 30 to 40. I saw children. I can't put it into words what it looked like.
What do you think of the people who did this?
We're Muslims. We say God will punish them. There's no other option.
Trees were uprooted, parked cars wrecked, and the windows of all the buildings in the area were blown out. There's now a small crater where the car bomb itself was detonated. The embassy's gates were blown off their hinges and part of its blast wall destroyed. That wall was only recently reinforced, and this man, still clearly shaken, says he believes Indian diplomats knew there was an increased threat.
The Council knew there would be an explosion. That's why 1 month ago they strengthened their security at the embassy, and they failed.
Political analyst Haroon Mir was in his office when the bomb went off opposite.
I saw an elderly person, his 2 legs were cut off and he was laying down in the street, and for 5-6 minutes nobody went to help them, and they were, and there was a total confusion. And before the I think the police and the ambulances arrived, a lot of people already died on the street.
You run an institute looking at Afghanistan and the politics of the region. Who do you think was responsible?
I just published on last Thursday an article, an opinion article with the Times of India, and explained all the attacks that happened since last January. All of them have the hallmark of Al-Qaeda. The Taliban, they are not that sophisticated.
This should be one of the most secure roads in Afghanistan. That's the country's interior ministry. And yet a suicide bomber was able to drive his vehicle up this road to park it here by the gates of the Indian embassy and then to detonate his device. This is a country where people have got used to preparing themselves for the worst. But after today's attack, there's both shock and anger. James Bays, Al Jazeera, Kabul.
And there have been a series of explosions in Pakistan's southern port city of Karachi. Up to 6 blasts took place within an hour of each other. 1 person has been killed and more than 20 injured. Kamal Haider has the details.
The explosions are said to be they're not as professional as the one in Islamabad yesterday that caused devastation. These are said to be smaller explosions and amateur by the nature of it, by the looks of it. At least that is what we are hearing so far. 1 person has indeed been killed, and that after a bomb was planted inside a motorcycle. The other explosions that we have heard about have happened on bicycles and in auto rickshaws. These are 3-wheeler transport, mostly used by poor people within the city. So very difficult to say as to who could be behind these attacks, but indeed reports and some level of panic in the city of Karachi, where the hospitals have been put on alert.
Those attacks in Karachi came a day after a suicide bomb attack in Islamabad. 3 more policemen have now died there, bringing the death toll to 18. The funerals of more than a dozen people killed in the attack have now taken place in the capital and the nearby city of Rawalpindi. The bomber targeted policemen assigned to a rally to mark 1 year since the start of the siege of the Red Mosque.
In 2 days, a ceasefire agreement will take effect in Somalia between the interim government and the militant groups who are fighting them.
But not everyone has signed on to the deal. Among those not ready to put down their weapons are the Al-Shabaab fighters. They have control of large parts of central and southern Somalia. Al Jazeera's Mohammed Ado has this exclusive report.
America calls them terrorists, but they consider themselves militiamen fighting for Somalia's people.